Okay, we are ready now for our last unit or our last content unit of our class, Conquest and Empire. And in this unit, you'll see, in some ways, we've now come full circle. When we started out the semester, we were dealing with or looking at strong imperial societies, right? The Spanish, the Portuguese, the Aztec, the Incas, the Maya. And then we saw this clash, or we saw conflict that created a change in societies and ruling systems, in race and ethnicity and cultural identities, right? And then we spent time looking at the evolution of those things, about how politics changed and society changed and culture changed. Now we're at the point we're getting into crisis again. So we've come down to having really two of these empires, the Spanish and the Portuguese. The indigenous empires have disappeared. And in some places, indigenous identity has also disappeared. And now we're at the end of the colonial period. And we'll see how crises in Europe, in the Americas, how ideologies, how wars and politics would impact and change again these imperial systems. So in this unit, we're looking at the crises, periods of crises. We're looking at the wars of independence, and we are looking at the legacy. Right? So what has changed? What has not? What has stayed the same? We obviously are not going into the national period with this class, because class is about the conquest and the empire, and the empire ends here. But I do want you to be thinking about how these things would lead to new national, cultural, and other identities. Right, and the rise of new political systems and new feelings of statehood and state identity. One of the other things I really want you to be thinking of as you're working through this unit is I want you to be thinking about why Latin Americans tend to not identify their independence wars as revolutions. This is a pretty intentional thing on the part of Latin Americans. They call them wars of independence. So as you're reading these chapters and thinking about what happened in the gaining of their independence, in what came as a legacy, think about why they don't consider these revolutions. What would be revolutions in Latin America would come much later. Okay, so for this unit, you actually have 3 chapters from your textbook, Colonial Latin America, and that's all you have readings-wise. I've heard from a number of students who are starting to feel a little bit panicky about that you have this last unit that has 3 chapters, and then you have your research paper due just a little over a week after this unit is due. So because of that, you have your 3 textbook chapters to read. You don't have any additional readings from Colonial Lives. There are a couple of short YouTube videos in the module, as well as supporting PowerPoints that I, of course, would like you to look at. You have 3 quizzes, one on Chapter 11, one on Chapter 12, and one on Chapter 13. So you do have that as far as normal work. I have decided not to have a discussion forum for this unit, mainly because as so many of you said, you spend so much time writing your responses for the discussion unit, and it's time for you really to be focusing on your research papers. What I will do instead for this unit, I won't take out that gradebook line for the discussion forum, but what I will do is I will count your highest discussion forum grade that you've had this semester twice. So I'll just put that grade in a second time for this unit. And hopefully this will encourage you all. You'll be feeling good about yourself, about your grade, and you'll be gung-ho to get going, and not get going, but to complete your research paper. Because that's really the biggest focus after you get through these 3 chapters. You need to be wrapping up the writing of that paper. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. So let's wrap up the colonial period in Latin America.